Hello everyone. Thanks to all the returning folks from around the world and welcome to the first-time attendees. Today's webinar is Social Media Trends Put into Practice in 2017. Please join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag HootEssentials. You'll see it on each of the slides as we go through. If you're in Europe, the Middle East, or Africa, please direct your tweets to the handle @Hootsuite_UK. If you're in North America or anywhere else, please direct your tweets to @HootBusiness. My name is Cameron Uganik. I'm a Senior Director of Growth and Marketing and Education at Hootsuite. My role covers global social, advocacy, owned media like our blog, online education. I have 20 years of digital marketing experience. I've worked with organizations such as Microsoft, Four Seasons, and General Motors. I'm your moderator today and also a bonus speaker, so I have two roles today. First, let's check out the agenda for today. We're going to be covering the landscape of 2016. We're going to cover the trends that Hootsuite sees for 2017, and then we're going to have audience Q&A. So we're going to kick off with a special guest speaker, then we're going to share our insights, and then we'll conclude with the Q&A. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce our special guest speaker, Aaron Jacobson, Vice President of Digital at Edelman. As the Vice President of Digital, Aaron works with clients across the Edelman network focused on integrated multi-channel programs that leverage social media to reach audiences and opinion leaders. Aaron has a long history of communicating with stakeholders, business, and community leaders, identifying and anticipating issues before they arise, and responding through real-time storytelling and engagement. She brings with her more than a decade of experience creating digital, social media, and traditional communication products for both corporate and public affairs clients. Today, Aaron works with clients ranging from community groups and international corporations, leading digital programming and social activations. You'll see on this slide that we've included our Twitter handles as well. We encourage you to ask questions there at the end of the presentation as well. We're here to sort of answer your questions and engage with you. So with that, I will pass the baton over to Aaron.
Hello everyone, and thanks for the introduction, Cam. Thank you all for joining us today. Now, before we launch into what's coming for 2017, let's start with the story of what we saw develop in 2016. These trends are the underpinning for what we're seeing for 2017 and what we'll be talking about later in today's webinar. So in 2017, we talked a lot about the idea of social as the new front door. And social adoption isn't slowing, it's increasing. It's becoming the #1 way that buyers engage with your brand, not just from an awareness or acquisition level, but across the entire customer journey from awareness to consideration and to advocacy. It's the customer experience on social that has become really essential for your brand. Now, we also saw the rise of video in 2016. You could say video really stole the social show. And we're seeing customers of all sizes in all industries see results from video content. I mean, it's pretty clear. Video, it's not text or blog post, has become the default expression online. It's the definition of what we would call thumb-stopping content. And finally, we've really seen the evolution of social in the workplace. Employee advocacy, the rise of Slack, Workplace by Facebook. It's clear that the lines between personal and professional use of social media continue to merge. And organizations are realizing that there's a lot of value in the talent, knowledge, and social reach of their people. And they're beginning to capitalize on that. Today you'll see how these stories are evolving in 2017, and you'll hear real examples from customers and tactical ways to put the trends we're seeing in 2017 into action. Now for 2017, we'll be talking about how social has really begun to catch up with search for discovery. Customers are seeking information first on social channels from their peer networks before other avenues. We'll talk about social commerce and how it's showing new promise, how point of sales and social integration are becoming key to the success for business. Of course, it wouldn't be a presentation for 2017 without talking about the rise of dark social and the impact that's having on things like messaging networks and our ability as brands to measure results against our business objectives. Video will continue to ignite the way social advertising works and is evolving. And connected workforces, how employees are engaging on social both to enhance their experience as employees within a company, but also to advocate on behalf of the brand they're employed by. Now, just a note on what you can expect from this session. We wanted to ensure that this is actionable for you. So while there's a lot of interesting futuristic reports out there that are covering virtual reality, AI, the rise of robotics. We want to keep this discussion today focused on the trends you can see results in 2017, not trends that will be changing over time in the next 4 to 5 years. So you'll expect to hear frontline examples from customers, expert data, and tangible ways to capitalize on some of the changes happening in the marketplace. These trends are based on what Hootsuite is seeing in their global customer community, that's 15 million social media professionals, 800 of the Fortune 1000 companies, and analyst reports and expert interviews. So how will major social networks evolve in 2017? And how will brands and businesses be using them to reach their audiences and connect with customers? Now, we've seen Twitter evolve into a place where consumers go to experience, create, and report on moments in time. From sharing moments around television events, conferences, watching public events unfold, real time is Twitter's focus. From a business lens, we'll see brands continue to use Twitter to create shareable customer experience moments, increase loyalty, and serve their customers on social. On Facebook, new features like Facebook Marketplace, to the rise of social advertising, Facebook reigns for social marketing. Brands know they need to pay to play on Facebook, and whether we're driving e-commerce purchases or building brand awareness for a new product launch, Facebook will continue to be a key channel for reaching and converting customers. Instagram, in North America in particular, hasn't been quite as successful as driving purchases as Facebook. But its success by retail brands like Warby Parker, Kate Moss, they show that Instagram works well for brand awareness and providing highly engaging moments for your community of customers, advocates, and supporters. We've seen Snapchat really mature as a social marketing channel, but there's a greater focus on content there than there is on other networks. Brands like MTV, National Geographic, Vice have all been successful at using Snapchat to distribute content, and even universities have been using Snapchat to engage students on campus. Celebrities, of course, are rewarding their fans with special content, exclusive access, and often fun series that you can see unfold on the channel. Now, LinkedIn has really come a long way since beginning as an online resume and digital Rolodex. And with the acquisition of LinkedIn by Microsoft in 2016, we can expect LinkedIn to continue to invest in their content platform. LinkedIn really wants to be the single place for a professional to go and stay on top of things happening in their network, industry, and profession. We'll also see LinkedIn invest further in social selling. This will help sales teams tap into the power of the peer-to-peer network and the connections they've made directly on LinkedIn. This means it's not where you go for brands to blast messages across a broad consumer audience, but it's where your content can spread through your workforce, be shared by your sales teams, and of course, amplified by your employees. Now, when we look at 2017, there's 3 connected challenges facing marketers. And the first is obvious and very well documented. It's the decline of organic reach. For example, there's a study by LocalWise that found an average of 2.6% reach for brands on Facebook pages. That's based on an analysis of 5,000 different pages. Now, the second is to combat the rapid decline of organic reach, marketers are investing in paid social advertising strategies. The increased investment in paid social, of course, leads to greater expectation of return in terms of tangible numbers. So we're talking about new sales, increased revenue, qualified leads, and doing all of those things at a lower cost than you would see on other channels like TV or other paid avenues. Now, in this context, we're also seeing the shift away from vanity metrics, finally. And we're seeing that the decline of organic reach not only makes it harder to get content in front of potential customers, it's complicating the way that we measure its effectiveness. This is because social media metrics like traffic and click-through rates, likes, comments, engagements, have always been hard to tie to concrete business metrics. So in 2017, we're going to see social marketers really focus on the tangible impact of social on business objectives. We know that social is good at driving traffic and reaching our audiences. The next step is to have better measurement on how that traffic converts and drives new customers. Now, the Edelman Trust Barometer is research undertaken by Edelman. It measures the global level of trust that consumers have in business, governments, and institutions. It's a global study conducted annually with 16 years of data and 33,000 respondents. In our latest study, we asked what sources consumers use to gather information. Now, search engines top that list, but social media is ranking 3rd. And millennials are generally much more trusting of digital media than the general population. 2 of the 3 top most used sources for news and information are pure influence media. Now, We also know from Edelman's research that people trust their immediate network of family and friends. For example, consumers trust information shared by friends and family more than those of academic experts or brands or journalists. It's not just about what your brand says. Employees, friends of employees, and influencers, even everyday people and advocates, every voice matters for creating trust in your product and services, and ultimately advancing your brand. Now, I'll hand it back over to you, Cam, to take it forward for the deep dive on the trends.
Thanks, Erin. Really good stuff. I do want to mention a few housekeeping items. Lots of engagement happening in the chat window right now. I want to make sure everyone's aware of that chat window. That's where you can put your questions in that we will select for the Q&A at the end of the conversation. And I also want to remind everyone about the hashtag Hoot Essentials, which you see on each of the slides there. A conversation is happening on that hashtag as well. We've got some of our social engagement people on that hashtag to help you out with any questions you may have. And a lot of the resources that we'll be mentioning will be in the chat window as well as off that hashtag. I have asked that the team give away some swag to some of the best tweets that they see off that hashtag, so make sure you're using it. I just want to carry on in terms of some of the themes that Erin brought up. One of the biggest ones that I think it's important for marketers to understand is that social is catching up to search for discovery. It's a pretty major shift that we're seeing, and it's not slowing down. So social usage isn't slowing; it's actually accelerating, especially as a discovery and research tool to find and buy from brands. My granddad used to say, "Fish where the fish are biting." And it's one of the top marketing strategies that I've employed wherever I am or whatever I'm selling. And today, the fish are biting on social. That's where people are going to get the information they're looking for. And what's interesting about this trend, as stated here, is that adoption of social is growing every year. 98% of digital consumers are using social networks today. Digital consumers have an average of almost 8 accounts. This number has more than doubled since 2012. And Facebook, no surprise I'm sure to anyone on the call, remains the top service globally for membership at 84%. YouTube maintains a lead for visitor users at 87%. So search, email, and digital ads, they're still important channels. I don't want to dismiss them, but they're mature channels, and we're not seeing the same rate of growth. Social media usage isn't slowing. It is becoming more influential than ever. Our friends at the analyst firm Global Web Index say going online is now synonymous with social networking. And I think it's really important that we communicate within our companies as social leaders that social is quickly becoming the #1 way people find, decide, and evaluate products and brands. Another part of this trend that I think is really interesting and has implications for our jobs every day is we're seeing the decline of traditional websites. So people are spending more time inside social networks themselves. Obviously, the social networks have a reason for that, and it fits their business models to keep people within the social networks as long as possible. But it just makes sense that over time they need to leave the social app and directly visit a complex corporate website will decline. A lot of this is driven by mobile as well. Anyone that's been on their phone knows how challenging it can be to switch apps, go into Safari and then go into a website when the preference would be just to do everything inside the app. So consumers are going straight to social to talk to friends, find interesting things to watch and read, and talk to brands. Over the next few years, we're likely to see the decline of traditional websites as networks like Facebook and Snapchat make it easier for brands to just talk and sell to customers where they are. I think the media properties are at the front line of this trend. You see that Vox is now publishing directly to social networks and apps. BuzzFeed has been, they're definitely one to watch. And from a brand perspective, I think they're doing a lot of the right things, no surprise, because their business depends on it in terms of creating content that is shareable, but also being very comfortable with doing that on networks and not having everything drive back to their website. So they're looking at a world in which they may not need a website in the middle of their business. Vice was at the forefront of this as well. They distribute their videos straight to YouTube. They have a channel on Snapchat along with CNN, Comedy Central, ESPN, and I think you're going to see more and more of this. And this trend that sort of the forefront of media properties have caught on and are executing, you'll see that as an important strategy for people who manage brands. Facebook Marketplace, instant articles, Instagram's tap buttons are all part of this trend of basically more customer activity happening within networks. Social challenges search for discovery. This data is from Global Web Index, and it's looking at global consumer behavior. And what you're looking at is 30% of internet users who turn to social networks to carry out research in brands is a market increase in what we were seeing in mid-2015, which was 28%. So this is the point that we find fascinating. I mean, sometimes you can be sort of in the age of disillusionment with social. I think many companies have spent a lot of money on social or have tried new things, and they feel like they're not getting the same return. But what we want to make sure that people we're hitting home is that social isn't going away. If anything, it's becoming more influential. And for the companies that do it right, that do it correctly, invest in it properly, there's going to be a lot of rewards for those companies. And no surprise here that among 16 to 24-year-olds, social networks are now just 6 percentage points behind search engines as the #1 place to research brands. So that's where the trend is going. I asked my 10-year-old a couple days ago what she wanted for Christmas, and the first thing she did was went to our family iPad, opened up YouTube, and looked for Christmas gifts for 10-year-old girls. And to my surprise, there was about 15 different options of exactly that content. And so you're seeing this behavior happening, and it's just sort of second nature for people that are digital natives. And I think brands need to catch up and make sure that they're there. This trend is also being driven by, obviously, the use of mobile apps. As I mentioned before, people want to stay in the app. The highest growth of this trend is in APAC. I don't think that will come as any surprise to people that are involved in global marketing campaigns. A lot of this is driven by the high adoption of messaging apps in APAC. Both Google's Allo and the many apps there, including WeChat in China. And it's sort of a given in APAC in terms of user behavior that people would make purchases through their messaging app. So one of the things we want to make sure we do in this hour is to give you guys actionable tips that you can take. We don't want to talk about the future without you guys having things that you can take away that you can do. So after every trend, I will be sharing some of these. So how do you get started with social discovery? I think #1 is know your audience. While social discovery is rising, you don't want to abandon your SEO and search strategy. I'm not saying that's going away. It's important. It really depends on the product you're selling and the audience you're trying to reach. Older buyers tend to use search engines to research products, but millennials will often use Instagram and Snapchat. And the trend, even for your older demographics, are going to shift to more social as more people do their research on mobile devices. Focus on credibility. This touches on a lot of what Aaron was saying, and I think some of the research that Edelman has done. Consumers that are researching products and social channels, they really want to hear from other people versus brands. So it's going to be important that you have both employee advocacy and customer advocacy programs, that you're highlighting customer stories on your social channels, that you get that third-party content for people to feel comfortable that they're getting the information that they need. The other tip is, in terms of advanced tips, is to distribute straight to social. So in the old days, there was this idea of the hub and spoke. You know, your website was everything, and that was the hub. And then you'd go out and put content on social channels, and the whole idea was to drive traffic back to your website. And for the first many years of social, this was a very effective strategy for us. And for us personally at Hootsuite, you know, we drove and still continue to drive lots of traffic. But I think we need to become much more comfortable with putting our content out on social networks to live, to help in terms of brand awareness and help with that social discovery that's happening out there. This has implications for your metrics and your KPIs. And as we're thinking about 2017 here at Hootsuite, we've got to figure this out ourselves. An example of that is my blog team, which in the past traffic was a huge KPI for them. Well, if they are now producing content that's being put on Facebook Instant Articles or on Medium or on contribute articles for other websites, we've got to make sure that we've got the right KPIs to reward them for that behavior, because they can actually reach other people. Social commerce. So this is a trend that's definitely been around and touted last year in a big way, and we do see that social commerce has been hyped before. I mentioned last year where there was a lot of articles on social commerce, but recent developments do offer new ways to drive revenue from social. So I don't want it to be lost in the hype. I mean, this is definitely one sort of a longer-term trend to watch, but it is something to make sure that you're paying attention to. So here's some stats to back that up in terms of the growth of social commerce. 106% year-over-year growth in users who have made a purchase from WeChat. In North America, 42% of North American marketers list social commerce as a key strategic priority, and 35% of European marketers list social commerce as a key strategic priority. And there are new tactics to try. This is an area where I think you're going to see a lot of refinement and experimentation with the different social networks as they figure out social commerce products that actually work. Pinterest is really upping their game when it comes to being a place for people to discover and buy products. In 2016, they did a lot of work on their visual search engine, helping people find cool products. While buyable pins were launched in 2015, they've done a lot of upgrades, such as being able to use buy buttons on the web. Previously, it was only for the mobile app. Adding things to shopping bags and seeing related products. So if you sell a product that relies on heavy visuals, if you've got a product catalog, you've really got to make sure that you've got a strong Pinterest presence. Facebook Messenger version 1.2 launched in 2016. It'll be interesting to see how brands use the new features coming this year. Brands can now accept payments from customers via chat. Facebook looks like they're following sort of the trends that we're seeing in APAC of people doing their commerce on the messaging app versus within the main newsfeed. And so that's definitely one to look at and experiment with. Using Instagram to sell products just got a lot easier. The photo sharing app introduced a new tap to view button on November 1st, so this is quite recent. The button gives shoppers the opportunity to learn more about an item in an image, as well as the option to go directly to the retailer's website. So this is kind of an intermediary step, and I think that comes from some of the learnings of them going maybe too aggressively when users are not really in the context of purchasing. So you'll see further experimentation with this. And this quote is just looking at how Pinterest, which in the past would be labeled a social network, they really are trying to position themselves as a discovery platform, very similar to Google. And I think that this quote from their head of commerce captures that nicely. So in terms of how to get started with social commerce, in terms of the basics, I think that social commerce has a lot of opportunity, but it's not right for every brand. It does depend on your product and your audience, but experiment with it if it makes sense within your demographic. Persuade with video. Video, you'll hear this in sort of the upcoming trend, but video can help showcase products in more detail. And it can alleviate many of the buyer concerns and educate them about features, so make sure that video is part of that. And in terms of advanced tips, if you feel like you've done some experimentation on social commerce, I think it's really important that social commerce is really a collaboration between e-commerce and social teams. So pick a common goal, such as driving larger order sizes, and run a pilot together. Make sure that you're working closely with your e-commerce teams and compare results to the pilot versus siloed approaches to e-commerce. And the other tip, which I think is a good one, is making buying fun on social. So North American and European consumers may not be as comfortable with social commerce, but maybe use novelty as to your advantage with flash sales, fun products, something that really drives word of mouth. It's something that's interesting and inherently shareable. And how Hootsuite can help. We did announce WeChat integration So for our Hootsuite Enterprise users, you now can schedule, message, and monitor conversations for WeChat within Hootsuite. Next one, dark social rising. So again, this is something that I think marketers have been talking about for a long time. Dark social is challenging traditional ways of measuring social ROI, but there are ways to combat it. I think it is important, social marketers and marketing leaders, that we're aware that dark social is a trend that is only growing in terms of the kind of impact that it has. It's our trend this year, not because it's new, but because there are forces of work that are increasing, I guess, what could be labeled a problem in terms of measuring ROI. For those that don't know, examples of dark social in basic terms, it's the activity that happens outside the view of traditional web and social analytics. So an example would be copying and pasting links rather than using a sharing button, or in-app sharing, customers sharing links with each other inside an app like Facebook, or expiring content like Snapchat. So with the growth of social networks like Snapchat, this is going to become more of a way that people share content that they like. And I'm sure that if you think about your own behavior and think about how you share content with others, you're doing this right now. In fact, 82% of content shared on mobile is done through dark social, and the source on that is Radium One. So it is big. It's not a new problem. As marketers, anyone that really has driven programs to drive word of mouth, this is something that has been part of the challenge as marketers to measure the impact of what we're doing. In terms of the growth, 92% of millennials will only share information on Snapchat with close friends. 84% of consumers' outbound sharing from publishers and marketers' websites now takes place via dark social channels, such as email and instant message. And 70% of all global sharing estimated to be dark social. So it's big and it's growing. We have seen some brands tackle this in some interesting ways. Adidas is taking really a research approach. They've created special micro communities on WhatsApp with their brand advocates. So Adidas, this is a branded community. It's within their brand advocates, but it helps them better study what's happening in dark social, so they can leverage that behavior in their campaigns. Time took a really simple approach that I like. They looked at their Mary Claire website. They knew people were copying and pasting articles and sending them privately through email. So what they did is they looked at a piece of popular content. They found that 19,000 shares were via copy and paste email versus 5,000 shares on Facebook and Twitter. So they built a share via email button and then began tagging that as social email. So that's one very simple tactic to start being able to measure the impact of some of this dark social activity happening. And the final example is Burger King. It's really embracing dark social. So they created an emoji keyboard that you could only download, that they only made available through dark social campaigns. In that way, they could just measure the impact that dark social is having on their brand. So in terms of how to track dark social, I think that the basics are, make sure that you're tagging the traffic that you can measure. I think that there's still a lot of brands out there that are not using UTM codes and standardizing these across all of your teams. So make sure you're doing the basics and tracking the things that you can. Unite social data, integrate social activity with other systems of record such as Salesforce and Marketo. Work with SEO teams to understand the attribution path. Stay simple. Copy and link to Clipboard. That example that I gave in terms of Time and Mary Claire magazine, I think is a good one. In terms of advanced tips, studying customers, running an experiment to see how dark social is impacting your sharing, embracing the dark side. Explore dark social only distribution for specific content. I think that's a really cool idea. And then personas. Actually make sure that if you are going to invest in dark social, experimenting there, making sure that you're doing it with the right personas. And we have some solutions to help in terms of measuring end-to-end social ROI. Hootsuite and LiftMetrics have teamed up, helping you measure organic and paid. And there's a link that you'll find I think they'll be linking it in the chat section, definitely online. And tracking leads, so the Hootsuite Marketo integration helps you connect social activity to revenue. So I would have to say my number one trend, my favorite trend, because my interest in storytelling, is video. That was a trend last year, and we really think that video is going to ignite social advertising, and it's exciting what's happening on the social networks right now in terms of social video. So last year, social video stole the show. In 2017, social video advertising will be a key strategic focus. 65% of marketers prioritize social video platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter over traditional web video. And Aaron mentioned this earlier. I think there really is a new language to social, and that language is going to become more and more video. It's going to be the way that not only brands use to communicate with their audiences, but that people will default. There was a quote from a VP of Facebook recently in which she was just thinking about the future, and it was a future in which most, if not all, posts on Facebook were video posts. And I think that that's helpful in terms of emphasizing how important video is going to be. It's important now. It's going to be only more important as time goes on. So some numbers to back up that claim. Marketers are focusing on social video ads specifically. 78% of marketers plan to use social video advertising over the next 12 months. 65% of marketers will focus on Facebook video advertising in 2017, followed by YouTube at 39% and Instagram at 21.7%. 41% of marketers say that optimizing paid social ads is a key priority for them. And there's some really interesting products, if you will, that the major networks are now coming out with that incorporate video. So we've all seen Facebook Live videos. This is a picture of BuzzFeed. They topped the charts with 800,000 people tuning into their Facebook Live broadcast, which featured 2 BuzzFeed employees trying to explode a watermelon with elastic bands. And so, the next evolution of live video, the first part was to create really compelling content. The next one is to figure out how we can have brands participate in that. So, we're going to expect Facebook to roll out ads on live streams. So companies will be able to buy ads on live videos done by publishers like BuzzFeed that understand this medium. And I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for the marketers that jump on this first. That's sort of been a trend in digital marketing through my career. If you can be one of the first marketers to jump on a new ad format, usually there are real rewards in terms of efficiencies. I like this from Twitter. Twitter's conversational ads. In 2016, they released these conversational ads. They're video-based ads that make it fun for customers to engage with video content. They encourage a more dynamic interaction with ads. So this example was you could tweet the hashtag and unlock hidden videos if you chose Captain America versus Iron Man for the Civil War movie. And it actually is encouraging people to share the content themselves, taking advantage of really advocacy, which makes for higher engagement numbers. So that is one product that I think is worth looking at. Instagram expands video options, so Instagram is pushing further into video ad formats, adding video to the carousel product that it launched last year. This means you can now add a combination of static photos and 60-second videos with carousel ads. An example, I think, of a brand doing a good job of this is Airbnb's first ads on the new format. It took viewers through a sequence of videos from various tourist attractions in Tokyo. But a car brand might entice users with a video about a new car, flashy shots, driving through the mountains, and then use images to showcase different details. I think that there's lots of brands that this is going to work for. So how to get started? In terms of the basics, I mean, these are really social video best practices in terms of short and visual. Keep it short, under 30 seconds. Make sure that you're creating videos that are specific to each social network. Different videos work for each. And remember, audiences will likely watch with their audio turned off. So focus on simple messages that can be understood without audio. In terms of inspiration, I think MailChimp, Dunkin' Donuts, Staples, they're all doing a really good job of creating catchy social videos that really are designed for sharing. And the other great thing about social videos is that you can test, where in the past, testing a video concept or an ad was quite an expensive endeavor for brands. Now you can test short clips. It's really easy to do. It doesn't need to cost really any money from a media perspective or research perspective to figure out what users are engaging with. So produce a lot of short clips, and quickly test what's working, and then you can focus your resources on the campaigns that are working. And as always, focus on customer stories. For the Hootsuite brand, it's really important for us that our customers are the heroes, and I think that's true for most brands. And so make sure that you're telling your customers' stories within videos. Solutions to help in 2017, manage paid and organic from one place. We've announced several ad partnerships, integrations with AdEspresso, Kensho, Adaptly, and more, and there's a link there for that. And there's a social ads toolkit, so you can download our social ads toolkit, which we created in partnership with AdEspresso. It also includes 137 Instagram ad examples to help you out. So finally, I want to talk about a trend that really is impacting all the clients that we see, and that's the organizations are turning into connected workforces. So social began as a department-specific strategy, but leaders are expanding social to tap the power of a connected workforce. So, CMOs and marketing leaders that get it understand that social is not just the purview of the marketing team. That for really to leverage the power of social means empowering your organization around social. And we see three workplaces that really are converging around this one idea. The first one is employee advocacy. So this is organizations in all industries realizing that customers want to talk to their peers. You saw that in the research that Aaron provided earlier, their employees. Now we know that advocacy isn't by any means a new trend, but what is changing is that it's no longer a tactic or a shiny object. It needs to be a core component of your marketing strategies, your social strategies. And it is gaining adoption in nearly every industry. It's maturing and developing in very interesting ways. The second is social selling. We're seeing that customers are looking for one-to-one interactions rather than brand campaigns. This is a theme that falls all the way through the trends that we're presenting here today. Social selling isn't about new sales tactics, but it's layering social on top of what sales teams already do. And this is swelling in every industry, typically risk-averse industries as well. We're seeing a lot of wealth management companies picking up social selling. And we only see this trend accelerating in 2017. And then finally, if social is moving across the organization, training becomes much more important. You need to build a baseline of digital skills, including social, to avoid mistakes and ensure consistency. So training is going to be very important as social moves across the entire organization. These trends reflect the change in the customer journey. 21% of consumers report liking employee posts far higher than the average brand post or social ad. 67% of consumers we surveyed trust recommendations from families and friends. 90% of brands surveyed by Alternative have plans to pursue employee advocacy strategies in 2017. And 72% of salespeople who incorporated social media into their process outperformed their colleagues. One example is Accor Hotel and their Hootsuite customer. Accor has 4,000 hotels in 92 countries. That includes the Fairmont brand. And one of the cool things that Accor is doing in partnership with Hootsuite is their social desk. So it really is empowering 3,700 hotel managers and volunteer employees in terms of one platform. It's deployed across 4 continents, 15 geographical areas. And we really see what Accor Hotel is doing is bringing together those 3 trends that I mentioned, employee advocacy, social selling, and training all together to empower their employees to be on social. The social desk is using a form of social selling. Employees are connecting with potential customers on behalf of the brand. They're educating and connecting with customers on a one-to-one scale. And then 3, a big part of the social desk is specific training for Accor hotels that we've worked with them on. So they understand best practices and video tutorials in terms of doing social right. So this is one area that I wanted to bring Erin in on because I know advocacy is a big part of her role. And I just wondered if you could sort of mention some of the things that you're seeing with clients that you're working on around advocacy.
Sure, and we're seeing this in a number of different ways, from enabling consumers to become better advocates for brands to the way that employees are engaging more effectively with the businesses that employ them. And so, the spectrum of clients that we work with are from a range of ones now deploying tools to make that amplification by their employees easier, to ones who are just starting to move away from policies that have been put in place years ago that actually prohibited employee engagement on social media. And so I think what we're all recognizing, and as you had mentioned, is evident in the research done by the Edelman Trust Barometer, is that the resonance and reliability of the peer-to-peer recommendation can't be undervalued. It has really become essential in the way that we seek information about brands or organizations in business, and the way that we make a choice when it comes to purchasing a particular product. And there's nobody whose word we take more than people who are just like me but happen to have a bit of inside information on a particular business.
And I think that's always been true. I think that social and advocacy, the tools now are there to help really do that at scale. Word of mouth has always been an important part, but I think that now the technology helps that happen at scale, where you can empower employees or your brand ambassadors to share your content.
Absolutely, and I think in the examples we've used today, we've used a lot of consumer-focused brands, but in the context of corporate business, when you're dealing with heavy, meaty issues, some of the things that are most important to you is the share of voice on side with your particular point of view. And employees are really that kind of low-hanging fruit, people who already have the stake in the game on your business, who can help actually shift the share of voice on social.
Yeah, and I think there are two benefits as well when we look at social specifically. When you look at reach, when you compare what the reach can be on branded social channels versus the exponential nature of networks of when you then empower employees, the reach is magnitudes higher. And I think that it, in some ways, is not what most people would expect. The fact that you can reach more people by empowering your employees than your big social channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, though, when you're thinking about reach, you also need to think about a number of other things like reliability and resonance.
Yeah.
It's not just, we can pay for reach, but you can't pay for the kind of trust that's inherent by enabling that network that you have to speak out on your behalf to their networks.
Right, and that is the other thing that we're seeing. So one is there is a benefit of reach, and I think you're absolutely right, but then we look at the engagement numbers, which we can measure in terms of how many people are engaging with that message. The engagement numbers are much higher when that is a person, it's a real person that people know, and it's somebody that they have some type of relationship with.
Absolutely, and when it comes to employee satisfaction, you also see in a number of employee surveys that people are commenting on social workplaces as being the types of environment in which they want to be employed, that they're seeking out social CEO and social executives and engaging with them online and feeling pride in an organization where the executive level is just as engaged in social as the workforce is as well, and employee satisfaction rates are impacted by that as well.
Yeah, no, that's an added benefit. And that's why I think you need to couple this with training. I'm biased as I run online education here at Hootsuite. But I do think it is important because as you go up into the organization, you do have a lot of people that just are not comfortable with how that works. And I don't think it takes much education to get people to a place where they are comfortable with how social is. It really is just about getting in there and doing it. So in terms of specifically this trend, solutions to help, Hootsuite Amplify is a product that we launched, I think it was last year, but great product, good in terms of boosting your brand's organic reach with thousands of employees on social. And there's a link to that. And then Hootsuite Academy, which I have to say I'm biased because I run this part of our business, but it helps you level up your digital skills. And with Academy, I want to mention that that's available for free. So the social marketing course, you can go to Hootsuite Academy right now, and it's a free course to up your social marketing skills, regardless of what vertical you're in. And it's a great program. I'm very excited about it. And then you only pay if you want to be certified. And I actually asked the team at Hoot Business to send a tweet out around Academy. Again, it's free. But today we're going to offer a free cert to one of the folks that retweets the tweet that's about to go off on at Hoot Business. So if you're following along with the hashtag Hoot Essentials, take a look at that tweet, and if you retweet it, select one that will get a free certification, which is a $200 value. So with that, that was a lot of information for you to digest. I understand that. As I mentioned before, you will get access to this presentation if you want to play back anything at all. We do have time for questions, which is great. We don't often do. So I want to make sure we tackle as many as we can. If you just give me a minute, we're going to switch to the Q&A portion of the talk. So I'm going to pull up the questions here. So we've got one question. The first one I think is a good one, given that we've given so much information. But if you could only focus on two things this year out of all the trends and what we talked about today, Erin, I'll give you this one first. What would you focus on?
It's hard to pick just two. I think, the first, we spent a lot of time, you and I both, talking about advocacy, and so I would be probably remiss to not mention that as one of them. Looking at impacting your reach and the levels of trust you have within your audience by leveraging people who can more effectively communicate in that peer-to-peer environment, and again, empowering your employees to be real ambassadors for your brand and business. The other I would mention would be dark social, but it would be in the context of measurement. So as we see the rise of messaging apps, we see the rise of content, timed content, for example, that disappears, it has a serious impact on our ability as marketers to measure the impact of the success of content or the success of campaigns. And so in the context of dark social, focusing on measuring against business objectives, looking at conversion. So if you're talking about paid content, we're not looking at awareness or engagement. We're looking at conversion, sales, or signups, or whatever that particular action might be. And certainly, if you have a mandate of awareness, starting to look at recall. Are we exploring in 2017 to start measuring the impact of social content in the way that we had historically measured advertising campaigns on TV and radio? Should we be looking at retention and recall of our content and not just the engagement in the moment?
Mm-hmm. I think that the challenging thing with metrics and ROI with social is that social can span the entire customer journey. So I think teams need to be really disciplined about what are you using social for.
Absolutely.
So if it is brand awareness and top of funnel, then yeah, let's look at PR and let's look at advertising in terms of the reach and impressions. But as you move further down in the funnel, you've got to match it to the business objectives and the metrics that the business is using. And so that's where it can be very challenging, I think, for social teams to pick one metric, because oftentimes they're doing many different things. So some advice that I usually give is to make sure that when you're coming up with your KPIs, that they're aligned to business objectives and you're very clear about what business objective are you trying to hit with your social activities. In terms of my top two, I agree with advocacy. Obviously, you see it throughout this presentation. But the one that I really want to hit home for everyone, and part of that is because I'm a content guy, is video. I think it's really important the brands are experimenting, not just experimenting, but getting comfortable with creating video. And that they're not just defaulting to the old 30-second ad spots, that they really are thinking about social first from a video perspective, and that they're optimizing for each social channel. It really is a different game. Paid is an element of it now, but you really can get much more efficient spends if you're designing videos that are shareable. And for that, it's still the same content best practices that we've been talking about for years. It's making sure that you understand your audience. It's making sure that you're creating content that's either useful or very relatable to them. And so don't lose those things when paid becomes an important part of the mix. Don't just recreate 30-second ads, because they won't get shared and people won't want to view them. It's going to cost you more money. So those are the two that I would focus on. So Erin, there's a question here. What is your take on the role of Facebook for B2B marketing? Is this a viable channel, and how do you suggest to use it?
So I think that's a great question, and as I've seen a number of the questions come in today, you often want to say, well, tell me about what your business is, and I'll tell you what the right channels and tactics. So certainly there's no one-size-fits-all answer to questions like this, but I think Facebook does play an incredibly important role. Again, we may have given some examples of consumer brands, but when it comes to conversion, there is no channel yet that is performing as well as Facebook, and that includes a B2B context. On Facebook's ability to target its audience in such a specific and data-driven way really enables us to reach the right people at the right time with the right message. And so, in a B2B context, you can really put definitions around what that audience is, whether that's building what's called a lookalike audience against your existing, customer set, or it's, building out your profile based on interest. Its ability to target paid content is really what's going to drive sales on the channel, and I would look at using some of those tactics in terms of deploying on the channel specifically.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we oftentimes are, as marketers, we're kind of 2 years behind what user behavior is. And I go back to what my granddad said, which fish where the fish are biting, and no one can deny that everybody is on Facebook. Almost everybody is on Facebook. And so your customer is there. Now you have to make sure that the messages that you're going to send on there is contextually based on what your customer is doing on Facebook. So it may not be right for a B2B brand if it's targeted, the ad's right, but it may not be because that's just not the headspace that they're in. Or that the content that you create there makes sense for when they're on Facebook and the type of activities that they're doing on there in terms of brand awareness. So, but it really does depend on your brand. This is a good question. So, Cameron, what if your organization doesn't have the budget to do paid ads on social? How can you improve organic reach in 2017? So I think we've mentioned some of those things. We've said it over and over again in terms of advocacy. But it's really important that you are thinking about an advocate marketing approach because they will help you in terms of organic reach. And there are ways that you can counter this decrease in organic. And the other thing is go back to the basics. So understand that social is a platform in which you can build relationships with people. And in the early days of Hootsuite, we didn't have paid budgets. And it was really about one hug at a time, we would say. Because it was about everybody mattered. If somebody was on Twitter and talking about Hootsuite, they mattered, and we should be connecting with them on a personal level. So at that time, our director of marketing would spend part of his day connecting with real people. And that's how you start building a community and building relationships with people. And that hasn't changed. That is still a very powerful use of social, and I think that people forget that. And that engagement and engagement numbers, when you're looking at the KPIs, it's a really important metric to look at. I think still there are brands that may have a CEO that says that I want to have 1 million followers on the Twitter account and 1 million Facebook followers, and that's really the wrong way to look at it. Those are vanity metrics. Those can be bought, and it's going to drive the wrong behavior. It's really important that you are looking at the engagement on your content. Are people caring about it? Are they sharing about it? Are they commenting on it? And all those rules still apply, and they can all help a brand.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question to this question would be, you're talking about how can you improve organic reach without the use of paid. Now, if you're talking about how can you improve engagement levels with your existing audience, I think everything that you've said is absolutely accurate, right? Mm-hmm. It's the trend we talked about on the social customer experience. It's social customer service. It's deploying the right social listening tools to find those moments to engage in real time on those channels. But if you're looking at reaching your target audience who isn't currently on your channel, yes, we could talk a little bit about having particularly compelling content that may have organic reach, but ultimately, if you're looking at putting content in front of people who aren't engaging with you on social, there's very few ways to do that that isn't through paid media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard, and the hardest part is when you start, I'd have to say. Those are very hard days starting a social channel, and if you don't have paid, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. It is still possible, and the key is having very compelling content that does get shared. Let's see. We'll see what other questions do we want to tackle here. Erin, do you see one that you want to make sure we address?
I think there's an interesting question because I think we might have some different points of view on it, which is the question is it better to put efforts into posting great content to gain followers or to gain followers then create great content? And it piggybacks a little bit off of what we were just talking about, which is why I thought it was a great question. And it becomes the question of do fans and followers matter, which is the premise of the question. And so, my point of view would be, let's not waste time and effort bringing people to us. If we're going to spend resources, let's go to them, right? Let's be in their feed. And so, if we can get away from measuring our success against the need for followers, because the context of this question is about gaining followers, and make it more about reaching people with our messages, then we're looking at what is our reach against our target audience as opposed to how many people are seeing it organically on our channels.
Yeah, and we see it here at Hootsuite. As we look at the target audiences that we're trying to reach, you can have a lot of attention on things, but is it the right people that you're trying to drive attention? It's like that. What I tell my team is the puppy dog effect. It's like, yeah, we're going to get a lot of views on that puppy dog, but is that helping our brand? So I guess in that context, it's not just about content that gets shared. You really do have to have more discipline about that. Is it moving the brand forward? But I do often say, I think it's true. I often say that it all starts with great content that matches your target audience, that adds value there. Because I see such great benefits when that happens, and that is leveraging the network effect and the exponential nature of networks in social. If you have content that is inherently shareable and good and useful, good things happen after that. So I do think it's important to focus on content. Okay, I'm getting 5 minutes, so I think that means that we probably have time for one more question. Do you see Snapchat advertising taking off in 2017? Erin?
That's a good question. There's no debating the success of Snapchat as it is, right? There's 150 million users. 41% of people who are 18 to 34 in the United States are using Snapchat in some way. And so for brands who are looking to reach that kind of millennial or younger audience, it really is something they need to be thinking about is, this is where their audience is, how do we reach them? And certainly based on the constructs of Snapchat, that's going to need to be through some sort of paid mechanism. Now, some of the holdup in the past year and in the kind of growth phase of Snapchat has been the ability to actually, again, I'm bringing back the conversation of measurement. It had been incredibly difficult to measure the impact of campaigns on Snapchat. Now, with their recent kind of opening up to third-party measurement tools, we may see that evolve. My big question mark, though, is, will we see it take off in 2017? It depends on the price tag. Snapchat has been incredibly expensive as an advertising and marketing platform, and so small things like being able to put a geo filter for an event, affordable. But having actual paid campaigns, and again, to your point, on this channel, it's about your content. So being able to put forward really great, really compelling, really dynamic content that's going to engage with this millennial audience, now that price tag is just out of reach for people.
Yeah, I think you are going to see a change, though, with Snapchat. So, and the numbers are astounding. So 10 billion video views a day on Snapchat. 10 billion. I have to look back at the number twice. I'm like, are you guys right about that? 10 billion, it's just crazy. But Snapchat is, it looks like they're moving towards an IPO. It kind of feels like they're following the same trajectory that Instagram did. And I think Instagram, when they started with ads, they picked the right brands, and it was very expensive. And that's to sort of set the bar very high, and to make sure that they don't screw it up. But you'll see they're going to have to monetize those views. And so I think that you'll see much more affordable ad products come from Snapchat.
And I think if that's the case, then absolutely you will see,
brands go there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and those geo filters that are, as you mentioned, are very affordable. I almost don't want to say it, but I think we owe the audience here that spent their time on. It's a great deal. Those geo filters, it's one of those hacks right now that it's very cost effective. And so if you're putting on an event or you're trying to reach a certain audience that's specifically at a place, I encourage you to look at that. Unless you're in the social software business, then please don't, because I want it to continue to be cheap for us to do it. But yeah, no, it's great. So it'll be interesting to see as Snapchat grows as a business and a media property. So I think that's all that we have time for. Oh, we're right at 12 o'clock. Okay. I let the conversation get away from us. Time. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. We do have some solutions to help. We've got the links there, and they will be mailed out. I want to thank everyone. If we didn't get your questions answered, we will be following up with you directly. Remember, this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with us in the recording in the next few days. So do look out for that. A survey will be pushed to you following the webinar, so please do share your feedback with us. We want to keep making these valuable for you. And that's it.